The very basic breakup of the numbers tells you a story where investment has been completely lackluster, or at least private investment has been completely lackluster, and there's been no change in that. What you've seen more recently, though, is some slippage on the private consumption side as well. And in this particular quarter, government consumption perhaps was not as strong and couldn't prop up the economy like it has in the past few quarters. But those are just the basic data points. And I think there's a lot behind that data, which economists are debating and arguing about. And we've got some of the most interesting economists in Mumbai here on our panel. Sajid Chinoy, Chief India Economist at JP Morgan, Praveen Chakravarti of the IDFC Institute, Ajit Ranade of Aditya Birla Group. All of us here trying to understand from you all what is going behind this slowdown, and then whether anything can and should be done to try and reverse it quicker. I'm going to start with you, Sajid. You've had a fortnight to look through the data. I know the instant analysis comes out the day after, so it's sort of old news. But as you've mulled over the data, is there anything that's coming through in terms of what's really happening in the economy right now?
Sure. I think there are two levels to answer that question. Let me take you back 10 years, actually, and then I'll come to the last fortnight. The first question is, why are we growing at 7% now compared to 9% in the mid-2000s? That's the larger existential question. And I think we don't have to look for fancy answers. If you just look at why we were growing at 9% back then, it was on the back of surging global growth. Exports were growing at 18% a year in real terms for 5 years between 2003 and 2008. The last 5 years, they've grown at 3%. So a sector of the economy which is 20% of GDP has experienced a slowdown of 15 percentage points. The import content of exports is about 25%. So if I do the math, that alone shaves off 200 basis points from headline GDP growth. So the movement from 9 to 7 is explained by one variable alone, exports. Now your second question is, why has growth slowed the last few quarters?
This is the export chart that you report.
Exactly. So there's no manipulation here. This is just the GDP numbers, right? So 18% between 2003 and 8. Ajit will testify to this. 3% the last 5 years. This is 21% of GDP. That accounts for 200 basis points once you adjust for the import content. The second question is, why were we growing at 8% 2 years ago, and why has that growth slowed to 7 and now to sub 6? The first part is, a lot of the 8% growth 2 years ago was driven by the oil windfall. Oil went from 110 to 40, huge terms of trade shock for India that propelled growth. But that was always a one-time windfall. So at some point, that was going to roll off and the growth numbers were going to slow. So that's why growth had begun to slow well before demonetization. And my last point is, the recovery after demonetization has been incomplete. In that, there's more and more evidence now that there have been supply chains that have been disrupted and there are permanent output losses. That's showing up in lower activity at home and higher imports from abroad. So to the extent that supply chains have been disrupted, we are now importing, at least the last 6 months, what we used to produce. So therefore, if you look at the last quarter's number, net exports shaved off 260 basis points from growth. That's the highest in more than 5 years. So both these things came together. You had weak global demand and exports, and you had this what I call import substitution, where imports were replacing domestic activity. So the combination of that meant that net exports took off almost 300 basis points. So there are many factors here at play, but I think these are the couple of big ones that come straight to mind.
Since we've gotten into exports, should we just get that discussion out of the way, and both of you can jump in because both of you have thoughts. Dr. Ranade, you've been very active on social media talking about the export story, linking it to the currency. Do you want to talk about your perspective on the export and the GDP?
Like Sajid said, that exports constitute, that is not import, but just exports, almost 20% of GDP. And that's highly correlated with manufacturing. So we're talking about goods exports, but let's not forget there's also services. That's highly correlated with manufacturing and industry. So so the fact that the exports are not doing well is also actually, in a way, saying that the industry also has taken a beating. And in addition to what Sajid said, with the strong rupee, and that's the point I've been making, it's actually hurting domestic industry. So even domestic...
Ranade, so I mean, this is something that's not our thought away. This is something that Dr. Rajan used to keep talking about as well. There doesn't seem to be a very direct correlation between, real effective exchange rate or spikes in that and export growth.
No, that's true. So India's export growth is related much strongly to what's happening in the world economy. So if the world incomes are doing well, India's exports do well. So that's why I'm emphasizing the connection with domestic industry. Look at industry which has nothing to do with exports. And if the rupee is getting stronger, and that we can debate how strong or not, as you said, there's been an import surge. Between January and August this year, we've had a growth of something like 30% of imports. And if you take out oil, you take out gold, there's almost 19% growth.
And Sajid says 90% of that imports is manufacturing imports.
So you're saying it's replacing local,
That's right.
local
So
goods.
it's tempting to think that that's the stronger currency, right? And so what we did was to say the strongest appreciation has been against China. So the rupee moved almost 14% against the CNY between Jan 2016 and middle of 2017. So the thinking was imports are picking up, the rupee is strong against China, this must be Chinese imports. But what we found, in fact, Ajit, is if you dig down, is that the share of imports from China for the last 3 years has been remarkably flat. So the correlation is almost less with the currency and more with after demonetization. When does the surge start? For 4 quarters before demonetization, imports are contracting at 2% a year. Then suddenly in the 4th quarter of 16 and the first 2 quarters of 17, imports are growing at 13% a year in real terms. So my sense is, hypothesis, less to do with secular appreciation, more to do with the fact that you had the shock that affected SMEs, domestic supply chains, and you are now replacing that tempo.
Replacing those goods or that
but
stuff
let's not
with
forget,
imports.
Sajid, that India has an FTA, a free trade agreement with ASEAN. And ASEAN is 10 countries. ASEAN has a free trade agreement with China. So a lot of stuff can actually be coming to India routed through ASEAN. So I would be, not surprised if in fact there's been a surge of imports from the FTA countries. Even though India doesn't have an FTA with China, it's possibly routing through the. And the other thing about the surge, there's of course post GST. I don't know. I'm jumping ahead. What's happened with GST is that the importing trader has got an advantage now because the GST, earlier you paid CVD, a countervailing duty on import, if you're a trader, and that was not offsettable because there was no input. The trader doesn't pay any excise. Now the GST that an importing trader pays is completely offsettable. So actually, willy-nilly, there's been a substantial, almost 18% advantage in terms of offsetting GST to the importing. So the imports have got actually an edge.
But that's still post GST, and that's not yet factored into the
So I'm
GDP
saying
numbers that we've
going
had
ahead,
so far.
I won't be surprised if this sort of import surge continues to be benefiting from.
No, but I want to push Sajid a little bit on the currency and exports. Yes, so we've identified exports as a
right.
But if we actually look, export growth has been timid. Yes, partly because of the global economic conditions, but also if you look at sector-wise, say textiles, for example, it is very evident through data that we're losing market share to Bangladesh and Vietnam. So there is some other factors at play that are hampering our exports. Why can't that be currency as one of the many factors?
It could well be.
And Ajit will agree with you there, because I think he's made several arguments about how a stronger currency is
So we did this.
So, I mean, the fundamental point, Sajid, is just to add to what Praveen says. Do you agree that there comes a point when the currency is too strong, excessively?
No, so listen, prices clearly matter. Right? That's the law.
Yes.
So, the foundation of economics. So a 5-6% appreciation is at some point going to certainly have an impact. The question is, what are the relative magnitudes here? We've looked at the last 15 years of data by manufacturing sector. Right? You go sector by sector, textiles, engineering goods, pharmaceuticals, leather, gems and jewelry. And what you find consistently, at least in the data, the empirical stuff is controlling for everything else, the role of partner country growth in explaining volumes is an order of magnitude higher than infra-marginal exchange rate movements. Now, this doesn't take into account threshold effects. We have a 15%.
Okay, now we need to tell you to talk in normal people language.
If you have
infra-margin currency.
Small changes in the currency are not seen to be correlated to volume changes in these sectors. If you have a 15% move in a year, then the whole economics of tradable versus non-tradable
So in
changes.
English, can you explain to me why you think that we've seen such poor export performance over the last year at least?
So let me step back. In the last 5 years, what India has gone through,
isolated for a couple of years.
for the last 5 years, what India has gone through is absolutely no different from what every single emerging market has gone through, which is everybody was riding on this export chain between 2003 and 2008. We're in this global secular stagnation where until the last 3 quarters, global growth had fallen off sharply in the G3, and every emerging market in Asia, Latin America, EMEA was being hurt
suffering
by lower exports.
Okay,
So
but the last 3 quarters, Sajid, we've seen improvement in global growth and the forecasts are all very good.
Correct.
Is it therefore your argument that we will start seeing exports pick up, or should we believe what Ajit is saying, which
Yeah.
is that till we have this too strong rupee, we
Yeah.
probably will never see a recovery in exports, in which case that depressing factor on GDP growth will continue over the next few quarters as well?
2 quick points. These are very important points. One is, if the rupee, which has been rising about 4 to 5% in real terms in the last 3 years,
Bring up that
Yeah, let's. Praveen had a chart
from
on
January
the currency and
2014 to today, it's up about 15% over 3.5 years. So the real appreciation
on a real
basis is about 3.5 to 4% a year. Now see,
that's the chart that you
so
were.
if cumulatively that was biting every year, that would not explain why last year, 16-17, after a year of contraction, exports bounced back up in real terms to plus 5%. And in the first quarter,
And that's not base effect.
And the first not base effect. The first quarter of this year, Jan to March, they grew at 10%.
Yeah.
So the currency is,
No,
if the
but we
currency
looked
is
at those
gonna-
numbers. One second, we looked at those numbers and
Yeah.
we saw, did we not see some outliers in certain areas of shipping and engineering?
There were, like,
that did
shipping
not
had
seem
some
to
down.
that could be
completely
1 or 2
explain.
quarters. Over 5 quarters, you had.
So you're saying we're already seeing a recovery in
No,
exports?
what you're asking, the second question is more important. We saw a bit of a recovery. Now we've seen exports fall off, and that's a puzzle because in the last quarter, when our exports fell off, Asia's exports were doing very well. So now there's a divergence. India picked up like everybody else at the end of last year and the start of this year. In the last quarter, every other Asian country has seen their manufacturing exports, forget commodities because those are price related, pick up, remain strong. Ours have fallen off a cliff. So the real question is, why is there this divergence in April to June? There are 2 hypotheses. One is destination. A lot of Asia's exports go to the G3, which are doing better than emerging markets. Our exports are a little more diversified towards EMs. They're not doing so well. And the second explanation, again, a hypothesis, is what's happening on the import front is happened on the export front. That we've had supply chain disruptions post-November, December. Those have begun to bite 3 months later. We can't
And you know
discriminate.
what? I'm sorry, just to add one small point on exports. I think there is continuing GST confusion on exports.
That's right.
Many exporters have
So on the-
complained about it.
So it's a non-price
This
effect,
may
is my
just be a
point.
commercial impact on export companies, but
It will be
eventually it
temporary.
might even feed into
we can just
the
spell it
data
out,
that
right?
we've
We
seen.
can spell it out. On the import side, I said the importing
CVD.
trader has got the CVD advantage,
Yeah.
and the exporter now has to pay upfront
Yeah.
and claim a refund. But if there's a delay, the government promises that it will be 7 days or 10 days. But imagine if it's delayed to 6 months at
Yeah.
interest rates of 10%, that's a 5% hit.
Yeah.
And the profit margin is barely very slim. So that's going to hit the
So the
exporter.
government's put up a committee, and I'm sure when we talk about solutions to this problem, we'll probably briefly refer to that. The government, the planning committee, I keep calling it the planning commission. The Niti Aayog has also put together a committee
looking at it.
on what to do to boost exports. Praveen's on that one, so hopefully he'll tell us.
But no, none of these are exchange related.
Okay.
All these are non-exchange related explanations, right?
I must take this conversation away from exports because I know exports are important. It's worrying to me that we don't even talk about domestic private investment
I
now.
was just gonna-
Everybody is just sort of
So
you know,
one contributing factor has been exports. The other one is what I think Praveen's been talking about for a long time now.
Yes. So Praveen, you have
and he's the one who sent us a message the day GDP data came out saying, I don't know why you guys are so surprised.
Well, I
by
mean,
poor
no, I
numbers,
didn't mean to make it sound that way. I just said that is, in some sense, the elephant in the room
We have
because
that chart, I
we
think.
talk about exports, and I think Sajid's really the expert in it when he outlined how exports is the culprit. You put your finger on exports. But Sajid, this is something that Najib, something that I did, which is I just used flows.
Yep.
Okay, flows of credit to industry. And I said, because credit is nominal, let me use nominal GDP.
Yes.
Okay, and again, flows of nominal GDP on a log scale. And I said, let me face it, the argument being credit will spur output.
Yes.
So a 1 year, credit as the lead indicator.
Yep.
1 year phase correlation. 91%. Yes, you would argue I can correlate even days sunlight to GDP. Yes, I accept that point.
But you would not do that.
But there is a strong correlation.
Yeah,
The yellow line shows flow of credit.
Yep.
The incremental flow of credit, no
Not
log
just from
scale.
banks.
no, this is
No,
everything.
cumulative.
Everything, yeah.
This is
Look
RBI
at
data
that
which
sharp
has
drop.
everything.
Look at that chart.
Praveen's hit the nail on the head, and this is a single word that describes this: deleveraging. This is what deleveraging is, that credit growth will have to slow more than nominal GDP growth, right? Because what are we doing? Ultimately, there's a twin balance sheet problem, and this asset resolution is going to be painful. No country in the world can grow or have strong investment if you're undergoing a deleveraging process. And that's what India is embarking upon, and that is the elephant in the room.
It's been a year and a half.
Correct. So we're not in the midst of that process, right? But what does deleveraging mean? That credit has to be slowing faster than nominal GDP. Exactly what Praveen showed, the lines have to cross. And it's when that resolution process takes place, when you have those haircuts, when you have those write-downs, when banks are recapitalized, when the debt on the corporate sector, Ajit will have a much better perspective on this, becomes sustainable. Then you have the balance sheet strength both to borrow and to lend. And until that is not resolved, we can cut interest rates all we want, right? I mean, there's a chart that I haven't sent you, is monetary conditions in India have eased in the last year and a half. We've had 200 basis points of cuts. Liquidity has gone from being tight to, banks don't know what to do with it. The yield curve has flattened dramatically, and credit growth has continued to slow, suggesting this is a non-monetary problem. It's a balance sheet problem.
Right.
So what Rogoff and Opswell call a balance sheet recession.
So there's also a small contributory factor to this, and this is one of the legacy of the previous governor, if you know, that they've put a ceiling on large corporates. So basically, if large corporates have exposure to the banks, they have to bring it down very sharply, I mean, in some cases. So these may be corporates who are not suffering from the leveraging problems that Sajid is referring to. So you may be a healthy corporate.
Down, Dr. Nanda, they have to pay it additional. So banks have to put aside more money if you're going beyond a certain exposure point.
There's a limit. Every additional new projects have to be financed from non-bank sources.
By other banks.
From the capital markets. From capital markets.
Yeah, non-bank sources.
So, of course, there's been a timetable.
Is that significant? You think as a cost?
Of course, there's a cost.
Significant for those corporate houses that are still not.
He was saying that so the demand for credit is kind of affected by deleveraging, but there's also the fact that supply of credit to healthy corporates has also been restricted by that new.
True. The one good piece of news, the one kind of light at the end of the tunnel, is if you look at the corporate bond market, there's been much more buoyancy out there. Now one can argue that those.
Praveen doesn't agree with that. I can tell you that.
Well, I mean, there is
small enough that it doesn't
small.
the overall
Exactly.
number.
That's my point. That was my point.
The banks are the big lenders here. It doesn't change the flow of funds to the entire corporate sector because the stock is only 25% of total bank lending. But at least at the margin, from an incremental flow perspective.
I think there's been a 1 lakh crore increase, right? Which it's not a small number.
No, there
on
has
a
been
flow
a
perspective, on a stock perspective, it's still.
But
the percentage is out of 60 lakh crore is nothing. But
can I just
that's
cross-question the point that you made? Our companies, and how many companies, we don't seem to have enough data as yet or evidence to believe that companies are back, even the few of them that are not hurt by this NPA problem, are back into investment mode in any fashion. In India, let me point out, in India, right? Some of them might be putting money to work in assets abroad.
That is shown in your fixed capital formation graph, which is continuously declining for the last 4 years now.
And new projects,
and basically, I think one sort of not a litmus test, but one indicator is, I think anytime any sort of at any point, if you have some half a dozen projects of 10,000 crores, let's say, in commissioning, that's sort of a sign of health. We are not seeing that, especially from the private sector.
But why is this a surprise? I would argue there are two kinds of investment. There is manufacturing, and then there's infrastructure, non-tradable stuff. Manufacturing utilization levels are at 70-72%, with no visibility on domestic demand or external demand, and so much excess capacity in the world. Why would an entrepreneur set up a new investment facility in India? The hope was always not manufacturing, it was infrastructure, non-tradable stuff.
Right.
And that's the part that's been impinged by the balance sheet problem.
Yeah, that's the logjam is there. So.
Can I just flag one FTA issue?
Demand? I mean, you mentioned domestic demand. I just want to...
No, so I want to flag the issue of capacity utilization. So if let's say I'm planning a new investment. So I have a choice of going to, say, Andhra Pradesh or to Thailand. And SEZ.
So Thailand is looking much better than Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah, because if I want to sell to domestic area in India, I pay an import duty.
Right.
So my goods have to face import duty. If I'm in Thailand, I get duty-free access to India. So why would I set it up in?
But that's not new, no, Ji?
No, so I'm saying so all these anomalies add up, right?
Maybe they seem to stand out a little bit more when things are bad anyways, right?
Maybe they do, but I mean, again, stepping back, if we think, okay, GDP has collapsed or falling rapidly.
This fellow is too dramatic.
Okay, falling rapidly.
2 trillion economy at 5.7%.
All right, okay. We're no longer the fastest growing economy in the world. Is that
those things never matter, right? There was some
clearly. Sajid says exports. Okay.
You're saying credit growth.
And I'm saying
Or lack of
exports,
it.
we can't do much about it anyway.
Exports, you can't do much
And if
about.
we don't, especially if he doesn't agree that exchange rate is a problem, then we definitely can't do anything about it, right, in terms of boosting exports. Then credit.
No, hello.
You can revive the health of the SME segment, which
But that's
which may have been hurt
no,
by
but
demonetization.
suggest that can be done as quickly as we destroyed it.
In 2014, we announced a foreign trade policy which aimed at a figure of $900 billion by 2019 or something. So I don't, and that had some what I call this MEIS and ACIS, Manufacturing Export Incentive Scheme and Services Export Incentive Scheme. So I don't agree that that nothing can be done. What happens is that MEIS and ACIS have fiscal impact, and the proposals
right now doesn't want
the
to take
proposals
that
go to the
burden.
finance ministry, and like a CFO, they just
I think both. Ajit,
So I don't agree that. I mean, I of course think that exchange rate is a very important important factor which affects not just exports but domestic industry. But let's not forget there are non-exchange rate related
exactly.
also.
I think both Praveen and Ajit are right in the sense that Ajit's right in the sense that there's so many other things we can do to make our exports more competitive. You spoke about textile sector, right? There's a great chart here where 90% of India's textile sector, till about 5 years ago, used to work in firms that had 10 people or less. This was competing against China, where 60% worked in firms that 2,000 people or more.
But the
How can you compete with
but
those
this is
scale
the
problems?
age-old scale problem.
So there are things we can do over the next 5 years to make our exports.
Okay, so we're now-
But Praveen's point is key, that if this is the new normal globally, and exports will never again grow at 15 or 17%. We have to learn to essentially reallocate resources towards the non-tradable sector.
Okay, so, fine. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think we get the point on exports. It's probably not an easy fix, and it definitely isn't going to show up in terms of any recovery in GDP growth over the next 2 or 3 quarters.
We should mention agriculture exports as well. Why are we not in
So I'm just going to
agro-processing?
come to what are the other reasons you would attribute to this slowing economy?
Yeah, see, when we say exports, we must remember there's not just manufacturing exports, there's agro-processing, there's services, including tourism. My favorite number is that the number one outbound tourists in the world are the Chinese. Last year, 107 million Chinese outbound tourists. How many came to India? 0.005%. Because we know this number because the number of visas issued from Beijing and Shanghai consulates. So imagine if even 1% of those guys come to India. So that's one area. Anyway,
But Ajit, these
textile.
are all endemic issues, right? None of them have cropped
Okay,
up
so
in
you're
the
saying,
last
can we do
year.
something?
The difference I'll tell you is, if we had a healthy banking system, in the last 5 years, as exports slowed, you would have found resources being allocated to the non-tradable sector. That was my point.
Okay.
And you're not seeing that resource reallocation happen to drive sustainable domestic demand.
Like you mean infrastructure.
Because the plumbing that is supposed to do that is broken.
Okay, so
Plumbing as in just
Just
the
banks.
banking.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, we also argue that there is no demand. There's not.
yeah, I was going to ask you that
Demand's
because
fairly
you always
tepid.
get that counter argument, right?
Because
is it
what
a demand
Sajid's
problem or
not
a
talked
supply
about
problem?
is that fantastic piece of research he did, where he talked a lot about exports. He actually makes a point about imports, and he says how domestic manufacturing is hurt. We are in an era of import substitution, and
Yeah,
that
put that
plays on
chart up,
credit. That plays on credit.
Yeah.
Right, so that's
I don't like this word import
No, it's
substitution.
used in, it's that imports replacing
Replacing domestic.
Import
we argued about this
substitution.
argument because import
Classically,
substitution
it's
sounds like a
exactly the opposite.
substitution.
Essentially, you're cutting
Imports
off
are
imports to produce.
Let's just call it imports are flooding.
Import acceleration.
Flooding.
Nobody's
Imports are
worried
flooding.
nobody's worried about the domestic consumption story.
Yeah.
Everybody's convinced
Yeah,
that
so-
it will come back up after demonetization
I just want to
and all
point
of
out
that.
that all the feedback coming to us on social has everything to do with individual consumption.
I mean, consumer sentiment is down. There was a hit because of, demonetization, which may correct. But what if there's, jobs from the informal sector as you move towards GST don't get replaced in the formal sector? There's no worry about that? Anybody
So
can take this.
consumption spending isn't it still at about 6%, 5.5%, 6%?
6.
And if indeed
better than the others. That's why we didn't
Better
talk
than the
about
others,
it.
but slowing. So I don't know
I
if you
think
have the
the first
second
chart,
the second chart that I was referring to, where we've
In
got
the
the three
introduction,
components.
yeah.
That's also come off. No?
It is, but
no, but the import surge is showing some consumer spending going towards imports. So it's not as if it's not slowing down. Yes,
It's a private consumption
I
line.
would say of all the three, that's been the most stable.
Yeah.
Are there risks? There are. I would say the risks are in the rural economy, because even if you have a normal monsoon this year, agricultural growth will be 2.5% because it'll be a normal monsoon on the back of a normal monsoon. Last year was 5%. Yeah. So there'll be that slowing. Then you've got the GST/demonetization hit on the informal economy. That will all hurt
the deflation
informal.
Impact on farm prices.
But offsetting that is the fact is with CPI inflation so low, you've actually seen purchasing power for urban consumers pick up in the last year, and monetary conditions have eased. The fact is mortgage rates, lending rates to the only area where banks are lending are to households. So can consumption go from 7 to 6 or 6 to 6.5 to 5.5? Yes. Is that the delta here that's going to push India's growth trajectory? No. The health of India's economy will change when we finally see some private investment.
Okay, I have a couple of counter questions on personal consumption and the mood here on inflation. But I also wanted to bring up the same chart Ira was referring to on government consumption. We've seen this year, especially because they sort of advanced the budget and front-loaded, the first quarter of this year with money. And now they seem to be running out of it because they've exhausted most of their fiscal deficit margin. So we're not going to continue to see that much government expenditure come in the next few quarters. And that will continue to be a depressing factor on GDP. So we don't expect any contribution from there on.
With the caveat, that's the centre. So the centre's front-loaded its expenditures.
And the states have actually been cutting expenditure from what we could see because to provide many of them for the farm loan waivers.
True, but again, on a systemic basis, last year, the centre reduced its deficit by 0.3% of GDP or 0.4%. States widened. So for the government as a whole, it was a wash. This year too, if you look at the pressures on state finances in the second half, that's when the pressures rise. My sense is what you lose from the centre, you'll make up from the states. That doesn't augur well for the fiscal position, but I'm not too worried that that government's going to be a big drag in the second half.
But there's been a cutback on development spending.
Yes, yes.
Because it's all gone towards revenue spending.
Composition we can argue, but aggregate demand will, we can say yes, too little capex from states, too much revenue
but money going towards the farm loan waiver is not the same as money going to health and education.
Fair enough.
But Sajid, after GST, states have revenue visibility because remember they're guaranteed revenues.
Yes.
They're guaranteed revenues for 5 years.
Correct.
So there is revenue visibility, which means there will be confidence in state government spending.
So you're seeing spending pick up in the next few quarters.
I don't know if I'm seeing it, but
you expect that to happen.
I do.
So all of you expect that state government spending
will widen this year. It's not good news.
So the consolidated fisc will look very bad.
Will be flat. Like last year.
Okay, so
it's been flat for 5 years.
Yeah, central government pulls back, states take up the space. On private consumption, I know you said that even if there are small downward moves, it won't impact the main GDP numbers that much because it's been a fairly stable line. You don't think that GST could have a fairly dramatic impact on private consumption? And I know all of you have been applauding this low inflation rate, but I'm not really sure how all households feel that way. I'll just give you one quick illustration for that. Service tax has gone up considerably because of GST.
Yes.
And it's only going to now start factoring into our inflation numbers, right? So what we were paying as an average of 15 to 16% service tax on all services, whether it's food delivery and therefore the pizza you get at home or healthcare, advanced healthcare, not basic healthcare, or a variety of other things, you were paying for all this. And now you're paying at 18 or 24%, correct?
Sure.
Isn't that all going to start hurting consumption at some point?
So are you arguing it may go down? I mean,
yes,
growth may fall.
I'm not arguing, I'm asking, do you expect private consumption to be hurt enough because of this? Let me add to the inflation conversation. We've seen metal prices go up in the last 3 months. That will start feeding in. We're already seeing a big debate on fuel prices and what that means for the consumer on the fuel cost end. Now, this is sort of split between there's been some appreciation globally in fuel prices and no cutback on the taxes on fuel in India, which is why everybody's complaining about how fuel's adding to the problem. You add all of this up, you see what it means to the consumer. Do you see there being a big enough dent, therefore, in consumption to actually add pressure to the GDP?
And we have the 7th pay commission, right?
That should help.
That's what I'm saying. On the other side, on the other hand, we have the 7th pay commission perhaps to offset.
You make very valid points, but the fact is all of this is a temporary effect. So for a couple of quarters, the GST is a price level increase. It's a one-time tax increase, right? So will it impinge consumption for a couple of quarters? Yes, it will. But all of our forecasts for CPI by March is still 4.5%, right? So the household basket, when things normalize in 2 quarters, will be 4.5%. Will GST hurt the informal economy for a couple of quarters? Yes, but these are transitional impacts. So a year from now, I would not expect a big hit to consumption on account of GST because those are just transitional. I think what will matter more is whether the supply disruption to the rural economy, SMEs, the informal sector, if that's permanent or that's temporary. Has that activity moved to organized manufacturing, or will the import acceleration or surge last for more than 2 or 3 quarters? For me, that's really the key to how household incomes, production and consumption will move, with the caveat that the 7th Pay Commission
might take up some of the...
But you've also, yeah, that's one time. But you've also, I've heard you make this argument before, which is about this whole formalization, be it through GST or demonetization. Could very well mean, but there are many businesses that may just go out of business because they can't be viable as a formal business.
Okay, sorry. I just bring up the last point that I wanted to bring up as data points for thoughts from you, and that's the corporate tax and the personal income tax data that we have for April to August this year. Okay, this was released by the CBDT yesterday. Just look at it. 2016, we saw 11.55% increase in corporate income tax collections. These are on the gross level. I haven't put in refunds because that helps to understand government revenue. This helps to understand what companies are paying in total as tax. 24% increase in personal income tax collections last year, April to August. This year, corporate income tax collections growth is 5%. You might say there's some base effect. And there's 16% growth in personal income tax collections. That's a fairly low number, you might say, for corporate income tax collections April to August. I mean, that's the health of your industry.
Correct, but because if you go back, what was happening the first half of last fiscal year? Growth, GVA growth was running at 7.5–8%. So this is just, in my view,
is this only
it's tax buoyancy. No, it's not base, it's tax buoyancy, right? Growth is now running at 5.5–6%. A year ago, it was a couple of percentage points higher. Will that result in corporate tax collections being higher? There will be a difference.
I'm saying they're lower.
No, you're talking about last year.
The previous year will be high because growth was much higher last year.
Yeah, so is this not a measure of how you're expecting things to probably stay where they are or get worse from here on? Or do you expect a recovery?
No, nominal GDP has been growing slower than last year. And this is just twice of nominal GDP. Your direct tax collection.
So you're saying this is expected?
It's like what you're saying, yeah. It's just a slowdown effect.
So it would not worry you any further?
Meaning, what this says is that the tax to GDP, the elasticity is still the same. So it's not like it's drastically slowing down, this tax collection. What we have to worry about is the underlying GDP.
This is after demon.
Yeah.
And after all those tons of deposits.
Oh, you mean the widening of the tax bill?
Yes, I'm saying this is after all of this. Now, the jury's still out on all of that. But I'm saying this is after all of that. This is after the push of, let's say, informal to formal. This is after the death of some part of the informal, maybe for good reasons. Some of that business or enterprise activity moving to the formal. I'm saying this is after all of that.
But let's give it some time. I think there are two things. One is that tax buoyancy is going to be lower because the economy is slowing. Offsetting that should be greater compliance over time. I would say we've got to give it at least a year or more. And I would think GST probably have a bigger impact on tax compliance given the self-policing nature of a value-added tax. So I think it's a bit premature to judge tax collections just as yet. Let's wait
another read tax data now.
Okay.
I'm just going to sort of come to the last part of this discussion is to try and look at what can, or is there anything you can do? Should you be doing anything? So we talked about exports as one pressure point. Private investment, everybody's given up on, and consumption, well, it is what it is. I don't think anybody's arguing very steep rate cuts. So if each of you had to pick one area of policy focus as a way to, Ajit, go.
You know my answer, right?
Yeah, I know your answer. So you start.
So I think, of course, exports need importance and focus. As I said, we discussed all this, that there are incentives. There's MEIs, there's
but
CIS.
What is the corrective?
Cheaper rupee.
So the big corrective. And the domestic industry.
How are they going to do that?
So that I don't know. We need to. I mean, I know that the RBI is ultimately responsible now, of course, on inflation management, but I think they have some role in exchange rate management. We have $400 billion of reserves. We can probably go a little higher. I think we need an active sort of constituency to push for a slightly weaker rupee. That I think will have an impact for sure.
Do you all agree?
Are you sure the benefits will outweigh the costs? Of intervening?
That also means higher inflation.
Yeah,
and the question is, if you miss your inflation target, are you willing to trade off weaker currency for higher domestic
Sajid,
rates?
you just now said that your CPI inflation is around 4%, so it's still in the.
But that is assuming today's currency, right? If you have a 5–7% depreciation,
so it's ultimately, the people say that it's impossible to have independent interest rate policy, independent, but we are not in those, extreme.
Because the capital account is not fully open,
and we are not in those extreme situations. I'm not saying you go from say 64 to 75. We're saying 64, maybe 3 or 4 rupees drift, and then it's always a combination of.
Do you know how much?
They bought?
The BOP surplus the last 9 months has been $30 billion. The run rate the last 3 quarters.
How much of it is the FPI?
And they've absorbed pretty much all of it, right?
Everything.
They've
July
absorbed
intervention
everything.
was $12 billion. They're buying everything
How
they
much of
possibly
the
buy.
stock market flows?
How much? Yeah, what's your view on flows, capital flows?
It's all debt market,
Not
right?
equity
It's
market,
not
all
equity,
debt.
it's all debt.
$20 billion.
It's arbitrage
and those
flow.
limits. And so my own view on the rupee from a market perspective is the last 6 months are a very bad predictor to the next 6 months, because our sense is the current account deficit this year is 3 times the level of last year, and those debt flows that fueled the BOP surplus are done. Those limits are now full. So in our forecast, the BOP surplus the next 6 months is 4 or 5 billion. So unless the dollar globally weakens more, if the dollar is stable, I think the pressure on the rupee to appreciate going forward will be meaningfully lower.
Okay, so exports is 1 rupee, maybe, but no sort of jury's out on whether they can do
I would
anything.
focus on that.
You're saying the trade-off between a little bit of depreciation.
I think a little bit on
versus-
exchange rate management, much more focus, very active focus on exports, including services. And of course, we wait for revival of private sector investment. And
We have a new commerce minister, so hopefully he's listening into Ajit.
So I think that, that's a short-term thing. And of course, I think, I know fiscal hawks sitting here, but I think we need to look at that as also. Fiscal
This
stimulus.
is your cue to say, I'm not a hawk, I'm not a dove. I'm
an owl.
and I do what I do.
I'm not getting into that territory.
This was your cue, Sajid. And then it would have been a great post-retirement book, right? I do what I do, part 2, different author. Sorry.
I'm going to let that go outside the off stump.
No, and speaking of off stump, this will gladden your heart. We have some comments coming in on cricket, but I'm going to save all these questions and comments for the end. As Ira asked, your prescription of what can fix this, if anything, in the next few quarters, or will we continue to see a downward trend?
No, I'm just trying to be pragmatic and see. I'm not so sure we have to give up on private investment or credit to business. I think there could be policy tweaks around access to credit. There could be policy tweaks around
access to credit.
SME.
One of the things we discuss, and I know this is journalistic cynicism, but we've seen so much NBFC lending go up,
Sure.
right? And we keep wondering.
I'm not talking Mudra, by the way. Yeah.
No, it's so competitive, the space now, and we keep wondering whether standards are getting relaxed, and we're now lending to, I would think maybe not.
Trade-worthy.
it's not showing up in the numbers, Menaka.
Let me put it this way. Quality may not
PR.
be very good. So, when you say access to credit, what do you mean? Access to corporates? Access for corporates or for individuals?
No, corporates. I'm talking about credit to industry. There could be policy tweaks. Now, do I have 1 or 2 policy tweaks that I've thought of? No, but I think I'm not ready to give up on it yet and just wait for animal spirits to kick in.
How will
Just
that
one
help
quick
after
sorry, will recap help? Will recap help if there's 30,000 crore put up front for bank recap? Will that help in flows?
I think any sort of signaling will help. Even a signal would help at this point in time. I think it does go back to
Is
demand
there
or supply?
appetite for more debt? I thought you all just spent so much time pointing out how there is, not enough capacity utilization, there is not enough appetite to borrow for investment in India, maybe outside India. So how is it going to help if we ease?
Are we sure there's not enough appetite? I don't know. All I'm saying is, listen, if we have to pick one of these things.
But if there
we
was,
can't
they
do any
could
more
have
government
used
spending.
the bond market route. If there was, they could have used the NBFC route.
Bond
Not
market.
everybody
It
can
isn't
go to the
just
bond market.
Bond market, Menaka, I think it still caters to a very, very small segment. Just as a proxy, just look at the number of businesses that get rated by credit rating agencies. You would agree that's a precondition for accessing the bond market?
Yeah, of course.
Just look at that. Just look at that as a proxy. So again, like I said, I don't have a specific policy measure, but I do think if you have to pick exports, which is the proxy is currency, government spending, and credit to industry, I'd pick credit to industry.
Sajid?
Mine is, I think it's staring us in the face. It's double down on the asset resolution process in banks. We need to, this is an unpopular answer because that means growth could get worse or weaker before it gets stronger. And I'm going to say that there's both demand and supply at play. You can't control demand. What you can do is fix supply so that when the cycle does turn, we are ready again. Right? And so we need to undergo creative destruction. In democracies, that's politically daunting. Right? And that's the trouble here. How do you get that haircut? How do you get that right down? How do you make those debt levels sustainable? right? How do you then recapitalize the banks? That's very painful stuff. But the history of the world tells us, unless you don't fix your banking system and recapitalize banks, when demand does pick up, then supply becomes the binding constraint. So for me, the answer is clear.
If it comes at the cost of fiscal, whether it's through recap bonds and hence some financial engineering,
therefore,
or
if there is fiscal space through higher tax revenues, for example, I would much rather use that for recapitalization, right? So I think the simple thing is that what's unpopular is perhaps learn to live with lower growth, the age of diminished expectations in the next year or two, while you're fixing your banking system.
What is the band? 6 to 7%.
In this world, if you're growing at 6 to 7% on a durable basis, that's remarkably good. The key is sustainability. You don't want 1 year of 9% growth and a crisis.
Next year, though. Right? Yeah, I think we move to 2% raises, like IT companies hand out, right? 1.5%.
You're getting a raise.
All the bosses are talking, so I'm not going to say anything. All right.
Hey, okay, no, we've got, and I must say, I'm very surprised. I didn't think we've got over 25 comments, coming in from viewers who are watching us on Facebook and Twitter. No, I mean, lots of people saying, hey, great discussion. Thank you so much. Lots of comments and questions. I'm going to weed through some of the ones that are most pertinent to our conversation here and put them to you. So I think Rohit Chadha said, why are you all talking about expanding credit when banks are laden with bad debt? But you all have answered that already. A gentleman by the name of Brijraj Singh Jhala says, how do we bring the unorganized sector back to growth? I'm sure there's no easy prescription here, but if anybody has any interesting ideas or answers specific to this question.
See, unorganized sectors are vendors to large corporates, so their health depends on what's happening to large corporates, typically. I mean, even though there's a large section, 40-45%, but their health, their economic sort of dynamism depends on, because most of them are supplying or vendors to large corporates. So it goes back to revitalizing large corporates. Whether it's credit, but I think there's room for fiscal.
You're right, because someone was taking the example of, for instance, JP for me, and saying the fact that it spent the last 2 years deleveraging and now insolvency and all of that, saying typically the number of people it would put into jobs for every project that it did, and all of that was in the informal economy, and maybe some of that got killed by demon anyways. But
I think that's very important.
The fact
Let me also put in a little
foot
in the door for affordable housing. One specific sector, you said what can be done. So big specific sector is affordable housing. I know there's land issues, but I believe there's a very successful model in Kerala. We're talking about senior bureaucrats there. They do this prefab thing in about 18 months, and this is a fantastic, it's a success story. We just replicate that in other states.
No, and I think there's enough state land available.
Very good point, because the spillovers from housing are very large.
And housing has lots of spillovers, including for the informal sector.
When the RBI eased some of the prudential norms on housing.
No, it's not just interest rate subventions or risk. It's an entire thing. It's about construction labor. It's about steel. It's about everything. So that's one area which is, government's priority as well as doable.
Okay, a gentleman by the name of Vivek Agnihotri writes in saying, stop threatening business as thieves. So what should we do? And then he answers his own question. Take repo to 4%, take fiscal deficit to 6%, and get the babus off our backs. Okay, I'm not sure we can do anything to help you, Vivek, but great comment anyways. I think there was one that had to do with cricket, and I remember sort of marking that because I know, I think same gentleman.
Will cricket revive the economy?
Same gentleman.
Let's play more cricket.
Says this. Cricket hit wicket. Case of demonetization, tax reform, RERA, with poor batting on repo rate, poor bowling of fiscal deficit, and poor fielding of ease to do business. Need a cricket team of old-time India, need Virat-type guys to pull us out of the rut.
So, with all this gloom, the IPL rights were sold for records.
Outstanding.
So there is something good in the economy. Right?
Maybe we should end on that note.
Let's end on a slightly optimistic note. Let's give this government some credit. There were 4 or 5 very big things that happened in 2016, right? Whether it's from Aadhaar to the bankruptcy law to the GST to the monetary framework. Just look back at the history of the last 30 years. When you have big structural reforms, they actually impinge on activity growth in the near term. So this is an intertemporal trade-off. If we can ride through the next year or two and wait for some of these reforms to unleash their
this sounds like promising Achay Din.
No, but it's amazing. What you're saying to me echoes so closely what I heard from a government economist just last week. I met him, I came back and I told Ira about this. He said this is cleansing. When you cleanse your body, you go through pain. This is the cleansing related pain.
Things have to get worse before they...
I
won't say that. I'm just saying,
this cleansing
will the GST help productivity? productivity growth? Yes. Will bankruptcy help resolution? Yes. Will the monetary policy framework help macro stability? Yes. Will Aadhaar help deduplication? Yes. But
Yeah, will demonetization
all
help
need to come
formalize
together.
sectors?
but we have to give it time.
Okay.
This is not a T20 match. This is a test match, and we're on the first session of day 2.
So you're
we
saying
can't call
you know what Mr.
pronouncements so early
Kale
in the
said
test
about
match.
time.
I'll take the
You know what
analogy
Harry
forward.
Truman said about economists when economists are giving him advice?
They
saying,
don't even die in the long run.
On the one hand, this will happen. On the other hand, this will happen. He said, "Can I have a one-handed economist?"
Unfortunately, we don't have any of
The
those.
bat, right?
I think what Sajid's suggesting is the next time we reconvene this panel and have a discussion on the anatomy of an economic slowdown or otherwise is about 3 years hence,
Yeah.
once we
Yeah,
have all felt the
maybe.
good effects of cleansing.
You need 2 hands to hold a bat anyway. So
All right. Thank you all so much. This has been a fun discussion.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the
Sure
time.
thing.
And thank you for tuning in to all our audiences on social. Thank you very much for that.